Hello, everyone. As you mentioned, I'm currently Senior Director of Operational Technology for UT. I've lived in both worlds, though. I've spent many years as IT only, and then for about 11 years for a contract manufacturer, I managed both IT and OT. And now I'm focused completely on OT, but I collaborate with IT. So I'm going to talk to you about our recent serialization project and the impact it has currently on our automation systems, and then what I see for that coming forward in the future. So I work for biotech that must remain nameless right now. We're focused on the development of medications for patients who have very uncommon problems. The primary one we treat is pulmonary hypertension. Right now there's not a cure for that, but we're working on it. And the disclaimer, the opinions are my own and not those of my company. So serialization for pharma. There are three main drivers for that. The best one, the main primary focus is keeping our patients safe. Before I started this project, I did not realize how many counterfeit drugs are out there. And when you think of counterfeit, you think, oh, they're selling them to make a profit, and they've probably stolen them and they're selling them somewhere else. But it's much, much worse than that. A lot of the drugs that are being sold, the counterfeit drugs, aren't even drugs. They have concrete powder and other things that should never be ingested by people, and they're selling that as a medication that is supposed to help someone. So not only is it going to not help the patient, it could kill them. The second driver is maintaining regulatory compliance. As you'll see in the next couple of slides, there are regulations that are currently in place and regulations that are evolving that mandate we must serialize, we must aggregate, we must track and trace. We have to know where our drugs are from the time they're manufactured all the way through to the patient. And then third, we want to protect that corporate brand. It's not very good PR if there's a news flash that company X's drug, whether it's counterfeit or the real thing, has caused a number of patients to have adverse effects or even die. No one needs that on their conscience. So the United States and other countries have enacted these serialization laws, and they want to ensure the patient safety and prevent that counterfeit product from entering the supply chain. This slide shows the current U.S. milestones and timeline. And you can see the red X, that's where we are right now. The U.S. is really just getting started. When you see the next slide, you'll see how far along most of the other countries are. And you can see that the timeline extends out past 2023. It's going to take that long for the United States to have that track and trace ability all the way down to the patient. That's a very long time. So I'll move to the global timeline, which is going to be very difficult to read. But you can see that all the way back before 2010, other countries were already implementing the requirement to serialize, to track and trace, to aggregate. The U.S. signed into law less than 2 years ago the requirements that we have for anything that we sell in the U.S. This is really an evolving market. The Ukraine should come out in the next couple of months with their directives. The European Union just this week released their combined requirements for the EU. Prior to that, each European country had a path that they were going to take. So it's very good that they're combining that into one. So there's a lot that's still going on. So even though our project is really complete, it'll constantly evolve with some change controls and tweaks here and there. But right now, we can serialize in our plant. We are aggregating at every level, from the lowest sellable unit through the shipper to the pallet. And then we are also randomizing the serial numbers because there are some countries that require that and some that don't. And most recently, we completed our project to be able to ship to China. China is one of those one-off countries that will not accept a 2D barcode. They have the linear 128, and you've got to put 16 or so characters into that. And you've got to get that on a tiny little bottle. Not an easy thing to do. They also require that you accept their serial numbers. They will send them to you. Those are the numbers you're going to use. And then you report back to them what you used, when you used, and you give them back the ones you didn't use in that particular batch. And just to add a little more complexity, unless you're on Chinese soil, you cannot get the numbers from the FDA, their FDA, nor can you give them back. So we solved that problem by contracting with an agent to act on our behalf in China. And we did make our first shipment in December, and that did work well, so we did make it. So this is our typical packaging line. Not all the equipment is on there. Down at the bottom, I've really just put the equipment that we've added as far as making sure that we could handle the serialization, the different cameras, the different printers, the visual inspection stations, and along the top, it just is the different activities that go through, and the line master. This is at the packaging line level. Now I'm going to go to the next slide, and you'll be able to see the many interfaces we now have from our shop floor to the rest of the world. So again, you see our typical packaging line, and our line master, who is in charge of that line, is interfacing with LDAP for security, interfacing with our ERP to send information on the batch, interfacing with the cloud serial number manager. We've contracted with a cloud provider that manages our bulk of serial numbers. They send down however many we request. We may keep every line at 10,000 or more with a buffer that may go up or down. Once we commission those serial numbers, that data goes back to our serial number manager. The serial number manager also helps us with getting that information to and from our trading partners, to and from our contract packagers, and also is helping us with that China reporting, because even though we've got to get those numbers to China, we also have to understand what we've used and be able to report on that at any time here. We also have the edge system for distribution. And then we have other corporate sites that we interface with. So we've taken our line, which was completely isolated, and now we're talking to that line. Everything above it is outside of our shop floor. That's a huge change. So we've decided that we want to do what we can to leverage serialization to bring some additional business benefit, because we spent a little bit of money on this project. So we wanted to see what we can do, and it looks like clinical trials. I should have done spell check. They're not really trails, they're trials. So think about it right now. Clinical trials, for the most part, are going to be blind studies. You're going to put your batch out there. You're going to work with your clinical group. But if you go ahead and serialize that, the people that are managing that data on the far end, it makes their job easier. We're still going to be blind to the results because we're not going to bring that information back. But before this, a lot of them were handwriting one-up numbers on the labels so that they could track what they sent where, whether it was a placebo or the actual drug. So then on top of that, and this is where I really get excited about serialization and how we're moving from the shop floor up. We can interface with all of our other systems that we have. We can interface with our plant management, our ERP, our LIMS system, our quality management system. So if we have a deviation, we can go ahead and start it right there. Not only can we start it from the line, but we can see exactly what was going on. We can see all of the data from that line and help really pinpoint where did this go wrong. Even simple things like if we start seeing a number of rejects of labels more than we expect, we can look at it, well, something simple, maybe that print head needs to be cleaned sooner than we thought. Or maybe on the bundler, that plastic is shifting a little bit. So maybe we know that every 250,000 bundles, we need to look at maybe adjusting that. So rather than waiting until we have to take the line down to fix something, we can proactively go in, do a tweak, keep it running. And then it'll also help us identify some training needs. And we can interface with our training system too, since we're using LDAP. And if an operator is not trained to run that line, they can't log in. So immediate visibility, another benefit. And I was showing Andy this earlier. We recently just put in Smart Glance so that we can take a quick look. This is a screenshot from my phone looking at our remote warehouse from, I think, last night. So I can see that, I have a humidity reading. The last value was 33.4. I can see from the trend that the humidity is going down a little bit. And then if I want to look at that more in depth, I can go ahead and select that and see the full trend that's like the last half hour right there. So that's just a simple example, but it shows that no matter where we are, if we can touch the data, we can see the data, we can analyze the data. So we want to continue to expand those benefits of that real-time access. One of our requests has been, let's look at our energy consumption. Our corporate real estate VP pays all of our electric bills, which I'm really happy about that. But he wants to know, I get one bill. I want to know, how much does phase 1 cost me? How much phase 2? What am I spending in Silver Spring? So we can give him that breakdown, not only where he's spending it, but when. And then we can take that down even to the pieces of equipment. We may have 2 identical pieces of equipment, but equipment B might be using a great deal more electricity than equipment A. Environmental conditions, we're monitoring that all the time. We can also use that data and compare it to other information that we have. And then process analysis. This is one I think that's going to be very, very helpful. Just by digging into data on the OT side over the past few years, we've been able to determine where some issues were occurring. But if we were able to see that real time, all the time, now, instead of going back after, we could determine it sooner. One example of that is with pan coders that we were using. We noticed that we started having variations, and we had not changed anything, but the variations were huge, and we're going to put the batches in question. After the fact, we're looking through all this data, we're comparing it to things, and we learned that if the dew point for outside air drops to a certain number, it's going to affect the air that we had incoming at that time. So we determined that we would pre-treat the incoming air, get it to steady state, then it doesn't matter what the dew point is outside. We're still good on that. And then also we can tie this into customer complaints. One of the products we have is a device. It's a nebulizer. And we do have a higher level of product complaints on it than on any other product we have. But if we can look at the data, what was changed, what can we do, and really dig down into that, we'll be able to find the root cause more easily. Also, with that device out in the patient's hand, it'd be great to get that feedback from them automatically. So if they say they have a complaint that they can't hear the nebulizer or the nebulizer's not producing an output, and we get the data back and we can determine maybe the root cause, maybe that patient needs additional training on how to use that particular device. And then recalls, no one wants a recall. But if you've got to have one, it's better to be able to move quickly and determine quickly what is really going on. So again, the real-time access to everything that's going on, remote support. This is going to be really huge for our company. We have a Courtois tablet press. The technicians are in Belgium. Previously, to be able to have them remote in and determine what was going on with that equipment, I would run a temporary modem line for them. Let them dial in, let them check it out, then detach the modem line. But if we can get this piece of equipment up into above the cloud as well, in the cloud, they could actually watch the batch and process. We wouldn't have to put at risk of them dialing in on a modem, which is very old school. We can pinpoint trouble spots as they're happening. We can watch the batches in process. Yes, we have operators in the room. Yes, they're taking their readings. They're watching what's going on. But to be able to see all of the batches at one time for our manufacturing manager, that would be very, very helpful for him. And then again, troubleshoot without interrupting batches. We don't want to go to a stop and then have to start everything up again. Some pieces of equipment do not like to run as well the first part of their startup. If we can keep that steady state going as much as possible, that particular batch is in much better shape with fewer rejects. Oh no, don't hide. I didn't think I hit it. Okay. I tried really hard not to touch that button. So I've come back to this slide again just to make this kind of segue into IT OT. Below the line, OT only. Above the line, OT and IT must work together to make this happen. So when you start talking about bringing IT and OT together, you can have collisions, convergence. Ideally, you have collaboration more than anything. And Gartner is a huge proponent of IT, OT convergence, which our company's CIO continues to remind me that he would very much like that. While we have to work together, we're interdependent. I am dependent upon the network engineer to be able to manage my VLANs the way that I need them, to be able to open ports so I can get specific information out of my packaging lines and my manufacturing lines so that they can be seen. They're also interdependent upon us, which they're just beginning to realize. They are very interested now in knowing what their temperature is in their IDFs. Again, a small thing, but it's something that I can give them today, whenever they want it. There's really no one-size-fits-all in my mind from IT and OT. Not even at a single site. I have 2 sites where I'm managing the OT. The 2 IT groups are very different. One IT group is really coming along and working well with us, and the other IT group, it's not that they don't want to work with us, but I don't think they have as much incentive because they don't have to serialize, so they didn't have that necessity to come on board with us. But it really is, collaboration is a must. No matter how involved the 2 groups are, they've got to collaborate. So there you have it.